Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to AI War 2. We're going to get into some mid-game craziness. Things are going to be getting pretty complicated with that. But first up, there were a couple questions this week about fleet management and why I've got the fleet set up the way they are, etc. So I want to go back over that some just to make sure that I've covered everything. So the fusion we started off with, the two fusion bombers and the parasitic fusion bombers, I split those up because you can't generally turn defenses, the structures that is, into zombies. And so, the bombers themselves for attacking the structures and then the parasitic bombers for attacking the fleet. And then as we went through, we added more ships and we diversified and all of that. We've still got all of the fusion together. We could split off the pulsar tanks into a different group. Because they have a little bit different role than the bombers do. Bombers, of course, being the anti-structure. And then the pulsar tanks, they've got a couple weapons of different range. They're really good once they first come into the planet, as you see here. But the main thing that they have is they've got decent weapons, and they also are quite strong in terms of their survivability. You can see, like, if you add the hull and the shields together, that's 27k. And a fusion bomber, even though it's a higher mark, is only 18k. So they're significantly more survivable. So they're more of a defensive type ship, you might say, and it's something good for the enemy to shoot at, draw their fire, while still doing a decent amount of damage. And putting all of my fusion together and then all of my disruptive together does serve the purpose that we saw when we took this system. When you want to go up against, for example, an eye, you only want to have a couple of fleets that you do that with, otherwise you'll trigger the eye. And so, having a bunch of your stronger ships together in those fleets allows you to do that effectively. And so I've got one for each tech type, and that way we can sort of concentrate our force. And I could have done that further by adding, each of these has room for another, empty slot here to add another ship type in here. But I'm probably going to want to add more actual fusion stuff into this later. I'll rearrange things as I go. This is something that's always in flux as you're adding ships to it. But I also think you want to go with a long-term approach. And that way you're not constantly switching stuff out. So there's sort of a compromise between what you need now and what you'll need for the future. But as we saw in the last battle, we had plenty of firepower with these. We really didn't need any more. And then what about the other ones? The ones I haven't focused on upgrading. Well, we've got the long-range strike. That's the Sentinel gunboats. And what I do with those is, since they have unlimited range, they're sort of... there's good and positive things to that. Obviously they can hit anything in the system. But there's also a lot of situations we've been in where we're in a system and we don't want to hit, like if we just imagine in here, we don't want to hit guard posts on the other side. Like, for example, if I were around in here, and you can see we've got, like, for example, the MLRS post right on this side. Let's say I didn't want to trigger that right away. Well, I'd want to put the Sentinel gunboats on, do not fire. So having them in their own fleet lets me easily give those orders without having to constantly select the individual ship types. Whenever you want to have a different role, you want to have them in a different fleet for the purpose of the standing orders. And so you can select hold fire if you choose. Okay, so then the others, we've got the frigates to keep them out of range of anything that's good against frigates, good against bigger ships like the Sabbath, guard posts like the orbital mass driver, etc. And then the short-range strike is sort of, you could call it the trash fleet. Cannon fodder is probably a better word, but having those built up to just sort of, absorb enemy fire, harass them, etc., those are the ones we haven't invested tech and upgraded and probably won't. The Spiders are up to Mark II, the others at Mark I. And so we just sort of want to let them do any mop-up duty. I sent them off here to this system, LV-13941, as a defensive force, and they didn't stop the attack. I had to send my other heavier fleets in, but they slowed it down so that it, wasn't able to concentrate all its fire on the guard posts, command station, until I could get other defenses in place. And so they sort of serve a bunch of minor roles while the major heavy lifting is done by the other fleets. And then the question came up, why, didn't I just put all of my ships that are like the larger ships, in one separate fleet and switch them around like that when I go to hit stuff like the orbital mass driver? And really, my goal is to stay out of range of it entirely. So I didn't even want that transport going into this system. Like, even the transports are vulnerable to it. And so it's just sort of, you can keep them out of range of a Sabbath guard post if it's in the system. But in this case, the entire system is going to be covered by the orbital mass driver. And that was true of the one we encountered earlier. So I just think it's better to just keep the transports entirely out of system until you've dealt with that. It's a little bit more fiddly to control the battle, but it makes a lot more sense in terms of effective fleet management. So if there are any more questions along that line, feel free to throw them out there, and I'll try to continue to cover things as they come up. Now, the main thing that we want to see here at the moment, since the last session, I've just advanced things by maybe a couple minutes, and we've run out of metal. Now, that's because of the stuff that we lost in here defending this system, and we attacked in here and had replaced some ships for that, and we had been gradually losing metal prior to that. Now, I'd like to say that this was simply a brilliant move by me so I could show the starving mechanic, but in fact, I had overlooked it, and it's generally a bad idea to ever run totally out of metal when you can avoid it. The reason is, if something happens where you need to build a bunch of stuff all of a sudden or change something around and get some new turrets going or whatever, you want to have the resources to do it. Of course, you also don't want to have your metal maxed out. So if we look at the fact we're at 4 million rather right now, I would generally say keep at least 1 million in there whenever possible, and how much exactly you want in there is really going to depend on how things are going. Like if it's at 4 million, 1 to 3 million, somewhere in the middle range, so that you have some flexibility to move. And if it gets low, then you're going to have to do what I'm going to have to do here, which is just wait for it to rebuild. All right, now everything is set up in here. We've made our acquisition. We've explored some more planets, bunch of stuff to look at there. But if we look at our AI progress, we are now ahead of the game. We have 10 under the floor. Our reduction would give us 37, but the floor is 47. So we've actually got some room to work with. On the other hand, a second CPA has arrived, which is why I've chosen this as a stopping point. It's about half an hour ahead of where we were before, well over 4 hours. And that's up to 111 threat now, which is the highest we've seen. The CPA took up about half of that, and the other half was there already from various activities. Let's take a look at our defenses, because each of these systems is a little bit different. Now in here, I've placed the majority of the defenses here, and especially here. This is closer. We have this system, plus anything that comes this way is going to have to run through the snowball stuff. But then also these turrets, if we take a look at our ranges, a lot of them are placed so they will just barely cover all the wormholes, just in case anything comes in there, and then they can also cover the command station area. So they really cover everything relevant in the system, which that's a positive side effect of having everything sort of bunched in. Now we did grab the fusion tech vault in the other system. If we take a look at our hacking here, we're getting kind of close with the yellow AI, the second AI there, to the next level of response, but we're not there yet. So given the choice, obviously you're going to be looking to spend more against the red AI at this point. But also that boosts, among other things, our MLRS turrets are up to Mark 4. And if we look at our fleets, we're up to 70 to 80 so far because we've got the fusion bombers in tow now at Mark 5. The pulsar tanks are up to Mark 4. In the frigate fleet, stronger because we've got assault frigates up to Mark 4, and that gave us another one of those. So some nice little boosts able to acquire there, and of course getting more of the turrets. We've got 9 MLRS per planet now. That's going to help us there. Then if we look over in this system, of course we've angled most of it towards Glass Globe, only a little bit here, and these turrets covering everything. So I've built the assault frigates in here. This is obviously a must defend system. And we're going to want to watch this very closely Anything that happens in here, we're going to want to react to quickly. And our metal is back up more. It's at a decent level. I'd like it a little bit higher, but I didn't take any more aggressive actions after getting going in here and doing some defensive things because I wanted to save up the metal once I saw that the CPA was coming. When you're going to be facing a major attack, is make sure you've got enough metal if you've got to rebuild somewhere. Got a couple waves coming in. Of course, our instigators are still firing, and unfortunately, we have not gotten knowledge of where this is, but it isn't boosting AI progress. It's probably boosting the Warden or Hunter fleet or something to that nature, which is not good, but it's not as much of an issue. Okay, so what have we discovered? Well, glass globe over here. We've got a raid engine, the third coprocessor, a pretty nice battle station here. It's got MLRS turrets and plasma ones, both of them that we have some investment into and upgrading, and the ambush turrets. So this might be worth considering. One of the reasons to consider it, although it might be kind of hard system to defend too, I'd have to look at that, but is it would provide sort of a safety cordon. We could actually back off our defenses in here and put more of them in here. I mean, possibly even go economic with this command station if we took this, getting us some more energy down the road, but making the major data center more secure. So that would be something to consider. We've got another fleet capacity extender down here. This would be a nice GCA, but it's in a bad situation to defend, but MLRS and spiders would be good, although there's not that many of them. Another distribution node, and this down here, patience, is another data center in this direction, so we're eventually going to want to push our way through there. And I like this fleet. More fusion bombers, more assault frigates, although not very many, and then a couple of also lower level stuff that we wouldn't have much use for, the V-Wings and the concussion corvettes. But, you know, those could be added into our sort of cannon fodder fleet. And on the fleet thing, by the way, I did want to mention real quick that the most recent patch, just recently, like I think it actually came out today, did get rid of the fusion bomber starting fleet as being overpowered. You can still get fusion bombers in the consumer fleet, or you can still get them in the classic fleet, but you can't get a fleet of just fusion bombers. So they're continuing to try to balance that out, and one of the things that's, of course, going to result from that is the particular strategy that I've focused on so hard in this game of maxing out my fusion, well, not going to be as effective anymore. So you have to do more picking and choosing and find whatever the galaxy has to give you, which in my opinion is a good thing for the thematic purposes of the game. Now over here, I was going to march in, let's see, where is it? There. I was going to march in here, knock out this distribution node, get into here. I did take a closer look at this. I think this coordinator is going to be defensible. So Villet here, especially since it's only a Mark II planet, that's definitely the next one I want to capture. And so we're going to go in there, get the instigators, get the coordinator, eventually hack that. But going through here is a little problematic. There's some Sabbath guard posts, including one right on top of the entry wormhole, so we got to do some fighting, knock that out. I want to deal with the CPA first. And this is sort of one of the things that if you get behind on something, like I got a little behind on metal, it can really snowball on you fast. Because I had to save up more metal to prepare a deal for the CPA. Well, what does that mean? That means the instigators keep counting down. They keep firing. Therefore, we keep getting more attacks. Therefore, more keeps getting added to the threat. I've got to spend time now doing a threat cleaning, which is our next sort of deal that's going to happen here. And you can have enough stuff that piles up on you that it gets to be kind of overwhelming. And so when you get into this kind of situation, you really want to prioritize on what the most important things are and then work your way down the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of split up my fleet into a couple groups, probably have one group stay here, the other one move over here. I can move around my battle station if I want to at any point. And then we want to try to figure out where that threat's going, find concentrations of it, go eliminate it, and then, you know, eventually work this number down. And threat management, when you get to the middle game, and we're right on the beginning edge of it here, probably the biggest difference between somebody who's really good at this game and somebody who is just decent and somebody who is not very good at all. You really want to develop your skills at handling that. And there's a couple aspects to it. One is don't generate any more than you have to. You know, when you're attacking or whatever, knock out as much of the enemy as you can before they have a chance to flee. You know, the tractor arrays on your planets help to eliminate the enemy fleeing. If you have extra force fields, you can put those up over the exit wormholes or whatever. You know, keeping as much of that enemy under control, keeping the instigators under control so you're not generating more threat. That's another aspect to it. And then also, when threat does build up, regularly cleaning it out so it doesn't build up to the point where it's just going to come in and crush you. And the fact that threat is such a big deal, and we're generating more of it now because we've got more, you know, systems out in here, so there's more neighboring systems that are going to accumulate it because they're on alert. Enough of the threat is going to generate no matter what you do that I'm not a big fan of gate rating at this current point of the game, because I don't think it's worth AI progress to go and knock out waves when waves themselves are not the biggest problem anyway. The biggest problem generally is keeping the threat under control. And so we'll see if there's any battles of significance related to that, or if it just becomes a bit of a grind here. All right, now this is very shortly thereafter, and I'm just moving my top two fleets through, but this is the first batch that I found. And you can see there's a bunch of hunter fleets, ships coming through, and they're pathing from two different directions, Eotax and Sibra 9, and they're heading up to here. And let's just see where that is on the main map. So they're coming through here, into Soon, and they want to come up this way. And presumably to go and attack Tamaria. There's already 4 units of threat. But this is a good example of a place where if I was wanting to do some long-term threat cleaning and I thought I could, you know, afford to do it, I would just park my battle station with its turrets, you know, right on top of that wormhole. Or if that was too much to handle, then maybe on one of these entry wormholes and just snipe the threat as it comes through. But as it is, I'm just going to park my fleets in here. Let's knock out what we can as it approaches. And I'm probably a little far up this way. Let's move down this way. And I just want to be in plenty of range, like we can shoot them as they go by too. And we're going to turn some of them to zombies. And we're just going to work on eliminating as much of this as we can. You'd rather attack them on their planets than your own. Whenever you have the opportunity, you know, you generally want to attack with overwhelming force, all of that. And now we're producing all kinds of zombies, which will go off to other planets and attack. Now, they will also produce more threats, so it can be a catch-22, but still. We are eliminating some. You can see we were at 111. We're now down to about 100. And let's see. Yep, now they're running away. Okay, so that's all I can do in here, but that's the kind of thing you want to look for. And I just noticed as I was coming through, they had 16 strength of threat. So I said, okay, time for me to unload my ships and do some damage. And we lost 4 pulsar tanks. That's our price we paid for that. 4 pulsar tanks. That's one whale of an exchange. Okay, so here's another snapshot a bit later. Now, I wasn't able to find a whole lot of concentrations of threat. It seems they're just sort of hanging out there, not wanting to come in too much. You can see Snowball and Renata, the only place we can detect any significant amount at all. Snowball's here, Renata's here, and that I'd have to go in and neuter those systems. It's a little bit, not quite enough threat to make me want to do that, so I'm just sort of waiting for them to sort out. But I'm also pushing through here with my 2 main fleets, and I figure I might as well, you know, try to clear things out. Sui Generis is mostly taken care of. Then we'll want to push in here, knock out the distribution node, continue on to Valais. But we have the exo wave, of course, because of the major data center, as it says, 85% charged, and it gives you a percent. It starts at like 70, 75%, and it'll gradually tick up And of course, it starts generating before that, but I'm saying that's when it shows up in here as your notification. And the nice thing about these is they actually target the major data center system. Well, you could say it's nice or say it's not good, I guess, depending on your philosophy. They're very much like classic in that sense, where you know where they're coming, as opposed to the most of the other like counterattack stuff that the AI does in this game will just go wherever. So we know that it's going to come here. So I'm going to want to get fleets over here by the time this arrives to meet this. And you can see that the AI really is seizing the initiative here. Like, we seem to be reacting to them now as much as we're taking proactive action. And the balance between that is hard to find sometimes, but we've got to eventually find a way to flip that back in our direction. And here we go. Let's see what this exo has for us.
Taking fire on border world.
Putting all my ships in pursuit to meet them right. But oh, hello. Yes, hello, hello, hello. How are all of you fun people? Dire Tesla Guardian. You don't say. That looks fun. I think we're going to, yeah, is that going to go? Okay, now they're running away. Cowards. Okay, let's see how this sorts out. Yep, they're going away. Okay. So yeah, that would have probably wrecked our defenses to deal with that many Guardians, including a Dire Tesla, with no support from the fleet. So we'll definitely want to be keeping that up going forward. And really, threat-wise, we're kind of where we were before. It's sort of stabilizing at almost 100. I'd like to be able to lower it down more. We've now made it to Valais, which served a couple purposes. We've lowered the threat down more, not as much as I'd like, but they keep pathing through here along this path. So it's worth noting for that reason. The eye is still here, but it's about to go away. We've just been taking our two strongest fleets in again. And they keep sending out from multiple guard posts these drones, these small drones, and they're Mark II. And so our ships just mop them up, taking very, very few losses. But we haven't seen one of these before. This is a force field guard post. So basically it just, you know, stronger force fields to knock it down. But against what we have now, this is nothing. Just going to speed this up a bit and clear through this because we're going to see what we uncover after this. Now we've knocked out the instigator base in here, ended up firing like 220 times. Hopefully that next one doesn't fire that much. There we go. That's down. We could take down this eye, and then we'll take down the guard station, and then we will build in here around our wonderful new coordinator, and then we should be able to find out some more scouting about the galaxy. So it's just going to take a bit of time, but not very much. There we go. 8 planets. All right. Now we're going to, of course, want to build logistic. And now this is not a perfect, like I said. It's got these 3 systems. But if I build right behind this, then I think from there I can get a decent web of defense. I'm going to try defending it. If that doesn't work out, I can always go back to hacking it. But I prefer not to hack it. And we do know where this is, and there we go. It's boosting the Warden fleet. It's already triggered a bunch of times, so I was right in my guess on that, but I prefer to get rid of this now, if I can, which would give us, you know, no instigators left. We're going to get another one soon, so it just keeps cycling and cycling. Let's take a look at our AI progress, which is now, okay, 58, and the floor is 55. So we're pretty much right at the floor at the moment. But we can go ahead and grab those 2 other data centers, and that is, in fact, probably going to be my next target after this. Getting the coordinator and getting in here for the instigator base anyway, scouting where that next instigator base, felt that was a higher priority, but now we'll move off to that. So let's see what new things we have available. to wrap up this particular session. Okay. We have another eye on eye, another outguard beacon, a flagship, which, it's a decent. It's got a good group of pike corvettes, and then some of those metabolizing gang saw melee ships. There's our new instigator. And to get there, we're going to have to go through here, which will trigger the raid engines. Want to be a little bit careful in there. And some of the threat, by the way, hiding out in here. But now it's down to under 60. I'm pretty much okay with that. So here's our instigator. We've got a Warden Fleet base in here. It's only a Mark II planet. I don't foresee this being too difficult. So we should be able to knock this out. Of course, the data centers that we're looking at are over there. We've got a combat factory. I don't think I'm going to go after that. Another distribution node. That fleet, not too exciting. Especially the vanguards. That's a miserable amount of those. Now, the frigates would be decent, but it's nothing to get me too excited. And yet another data center, so we're going to want to hit all three of those. Probably just going to go around on a run where I hit like the data centers and the distribution nodes and all of those things, and just sort of get those minor targets cleaned up. We'll call Hegira Arc. So it's got the whole self-healing vampirism thing. You can see the weapon there. Decent range, good damage. And it's got vanguards, but it's got pulsar tanks and heavy fusion bombers. Both of which are in our type. And then the AI progress increasing by 10. So there are some things with the sort of super weapons, meaning like the arcs and the golems and whatnot, that I didn't really get into in the first game. So that would be an interesting idea. We could also capture this and then grab the patient system. The only having two systems adjacent looks nice. Now they are directly opposite. And yay, another orbital mass driver. So this would be a little bit interesting to defend, but if we built the station way over there, I probably wouldn't want to build it here and try to keep the mass driver. If we built it way over here, that might be a decent angle of attack. It wouldn't be great, or we could build it way over here, very similar. This might be a tolerable system to defend, or it might just be one that we take to get the arc. But I think I'm definitely going to want to make this a target. I think it's probably about time. And again, it's going to boost our AI progress by 10, but I think it's probably going to be worth it. Particularly, I think the kicker here is the fact that, the ships that we're going to get with it are very nice. So I think that really tips it over into being worth capturing, as opposed to just if it was a lone arc with no particularly useful ships. And let's take a look at our planet count. I think because we got like 8 more explored that time, we're down to 34. So I don't think we need this anymore. As we pick up Valet, I can let that system go. I don't think I plan on taking anything else around that. Still want Stellar Ancestry to get down here for all these data centers. And then probably head down to Elixir for the Arc. So we've passed the halfway point. Much more to do. Of course, I eventually want to come back here and hack this to upgrade a couple of our turret types. Getting that coordinator will help with our defense. And really my focus right now is just on managing threat, making sure we meet any exos that come in for the major data center right away. Regain the initiative. I think we're starting to do that. Get back on top of the situation. So if we can continue to keep the progress going, it won't be too long now until we start narrowing down where the AI overlords are. That adventure will continue soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. More AI War 2 coming up.